Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Chewin The Bat with me, Sam Brown. Joining me again is Noah Brooks, Rob Carter, and Cor. And joining us this week, the first ever guest on the show is Phil Haynes. Welcome, Phil. Nice to have you with us.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
No worries. No, great to have you on. And you're going to be telling us tonight your views and some other potential views on the coronavirus and certain things that link to that. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I've not done a lot of research into it. I don't know if the other lads have, but we're the stage is yours really, and we're gonna chip in with what we think to certain things and other stuff we've heard. But yeah, the stage is yours. Yeah, take it away.
Okay, well, just to start off with, Noah would tell you, because I've known Noah a while. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, so I can't tell you, exactly what happens to you in terms of what a doctor would tell you, or a scientist. Although there are plenty of scientists out there who appear to be selling their souls to me, and probably quite a few doctors as well, with all the things that are going on. So, okay, so to give you a little bit of background on me. I'm not like a widely known figure out there. I'm not, you've got some great big speakers out there who do a lot of things. But I've been going at stuff and looking at stuff and cross-referencing and delving for probably just over 19 years altogether. And having always had a nagging feeling in me for as long as I can remember that what am I doing here, what am I for, and what the hell's going on out there, and where's my place in all of that. So that was always in me. It was a nag that I could never get rid of. I'll cut all that short because that could be a lot of years of talk. But so I then went on to, I suppose, a path of finding out what I'm all about. So that's why I think, how I think, what am I doing here, what am I made of, what is everything else made of, and why is everything so absolutely mental every time I watch the news, and why does it never sound like anybody's telling me the truth, or very rarely. That's going back over 20 years ago, you see. So I started to delve into, firstly, little bits of quantum physics. Again, I did a lot of stuff reading into quantum physics. It wouldn't make me a quantum physicist, but you don't need to do that much looking into it to get a simple understanding. Although I did quite a bit. I started looking into consciousness and the players and what goes on out there. Okay, so there isn't anything. The reason I'm talking about this is there isn't anything you can talk about that's happening today that isn't interlinked and been going on for thousands, probably, of years. Okay, so for me, for a start off, nothing exists, which is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, off the cuff, but nothing exists. Everything that appears to exist to us comes out of nothing or no thing. So everything you see, smell, touch, and all the usual 5 sense things, and everything that you do and everything you make comes out of the no thing, which is thoughts and feelings and the world of no things. But it's absolutely impossible to get something out of nothing. Because if I gave you Play-Doh and said make the shape of a dog, you'd make the shape of a dog. But if I took Play-Doh off you and said make a shape of a dog, and you'd say, well, I can't. And I'd say, why? And you'd say, well, I've got nothing to make it with. So for me, nothing actually exists, but some incredible, miraculous form of information. Form of imagination. And that's it. So that could tell you that anything's possible. I mean, literally anything is possible. And as human beings, or being human, because we aren't human beings, we're having an experience of being human. These are my opinions, remember, and probably others, and you might feel differently about it. As being human, as we are, we have a mind that imagines. And you can imagine absolutely anything you want. And if you put enough will behind it, it'll appear. And you've heard of law of attraction and things like that, probably, through things like The Secret, a film from about 14 years ago. Even with the major things happening now, law of attraction hasn't gone away. You can still create anything you want. Okay, so your mind is key. Whatever you think is happening immediately, your mind will do it for you straight away. Starts acting on it immediately. It's your best friend, your mind is. It's your best friend that you've ignored for most of your life, unless you haven't. So if you've ignored it for most of your life, what you'll be receiving is information into the mind, and the mind will play it out for you. And that's what's going on exactly as we speak now, and has been going on 10 years ago. We're about to talk a bit about coronavirus and what's happening around that, and about 5G and stuff like that. the basic conversation we're about to have, I could have had with you 10 years ago, because it's just another step. And we'll come into that in a bit if you like. But have you got anything you want to ask me or anything before we carry on? Sorry, I can ramble. I can.
No. Yeah, I would just like to jump in and basically ask you if you think, because I also believe that we're like a universal consciousness that's just having like a human experience for now.
Yeah.
And I was thinking earlier that the whole concept of government tyranny is only enforceable if they convince you that you are like your flesh suit. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's it. That's how it works.
The whole concept of, Nietzsche said God is dead. The whole concept of them basically getting away with the concept of God creates a world where if there is a God, right, it has perspective. When another human being tells you what to do and what to think, you go, who are you? Like, you're just like me. You're just a person. If there is no God, if there is no perspective, then he goes, well, I have this degree, I have this flashy car, I have this nice suit. So that means I'm above you now, and I am God. I take the place of God because there's no perception of a higher power.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah. Well, for me, we're all excuse me, we're all one together and nothing together. Which sounds, I know it sounds mad, but we're all the no thing together as much as we are the something. In fact, we're more of the no thing than we are the something, because without the no thing, there'd be nothing. Which sounds even more weird, but without the no thing, the something that we experience couldn't exist. So we're more of the no thing. It's just that we've been kind of, it's difficult to say we've been kind of convinced, because that's blaming somebody else for it. But we have kind of been convinced that we're more physical. And even in religious circles, and it's no offense to anybody who's religious, because I respect everybody's religion, and most of those religions, in fact, probably all of them, and all the cultures come from the basic same knowledge, and much of it is known as wisdom of the serpent, which is why you have lots of serpent symbolism in lots and lots of cultures. In our country, there's loads of it. It's everywhere in our country, let alone in other cultures. So we all come from the same. We're all one together in the no thing and in the something. But you are currently experiencing being whoever you are at the moment. So you're like the character in the computer game, as a physical body in the computer game, the character you can see. But you're also the one holding the controller or the joystick, and you're having your own intimate experience of your own as an element of that consciousness. So we're all that one consciousness. This isn't my words. These aren't my words now, but you'll know that they're not. You've heard the term probably that the sea. There it is, the big ocean. If you go and grab a little bit of that ocean in your hand, you've got a bit of the sea in your hand. It's still the ocean. It's just a little bit of it. And we're little bits of that whole nothing, if you like. We're bits of it, and we're experiencing. So nobody has any real power over anybody else, really. But we're living in a realm that's held together by duality. And you can't have good without bad, because how would we learn from that? So this gives you a clue, if I'm right at all in the way I think about things, as to what this is all about. That there is no bad really, and there is no good really. And at some point, us as one, or some level of us as one, decided to give ourselves an experience of bad. Now you imagine if there's such a thing as the devil, and we call it bad, what those levels of consciousness have done to show, so that we can have an experience. It would be out of love, if anything, because they've gone, right, we're going to sink to the very depths so we can have an experience that opposes what we are. And that's gone on forevermore for me. I mean, it just keeps going. And in the level we're at now, if you've done anything with quantum physics, you know that everything's vibration and frequency. And we're all at different levels of vibration and frequency. So if you have somebody who's been having a real rough time living and taking drugs and having a bad time of it all, and suddenly gets themselves out of it and starts to spend some time with people who are kind and thoughtful and help each other, it's not that they've become any better than anybody else, but they've just shifted vibrational frequency a little bit to be in a different level of frequency. Well, who knows where those levels go to? Do they go to the level of Christ? Probably do, where you might not even be able to see those beings. They're just at a level that is just so highly vibrational that they're not affected by emotions. We can get to a point where we're not affected by emotions. Words are very powerful. I could call you gorgeous or ugly, and either way, I'll upset you or make you happy. That's how powerful words are. So, we're all at different levels of vibration, and what's going on now is something that's been going on for I don't know how long, but it's a heck of a long time. I'll stop again because I'm ranting again. Is there anything you want to ask again? Sorry, or anything you want to put to it?
Yeah, well, I'll jump in on a couple of little points there, Phil. So a lot of interesting stuff, and it's moving quite quick for my mind. Just going back to a couple of things. So we've sort of talked. You and Rob were talking about the sort of higher power, and whatever you think that is, or whether you think there is one. Won't go into sort of religious side of things tonight, but do you think it's sort of man, sort of what separates man from beast is, I mean, there's many things, but I think a big thing is that man is programmed to look for the higher power. Like, your dog doesn't sit there wondering where he came from, and I think a big thing that separates humans from the sort of wild beast is the search for knowledge, the search for the answers and the higher powers.
Can I just jump in for a sec there and say that if you think about it though, Sam, if we were born thousands and thousands of years ago, when the only people we would have encountered were the people in our tribe, we wouldn't have really questioned anything either. We would have just went, well, this is what it is. Now it's only now we have the perception of other cultures and things like that we go, are we the good guys? Are we, things like that. So
that's absolutely right. But even back then, like, I've done it for a few years, and you go to some of the oldest civilizations. Sort of, I was in Crete with went to all the archaeology museum and the lost city of Knossos and all that, and what this sort of Bronze Age, pre-Bronze Age, and even then, they're worshipping cows, they're worshipping the sun.
I didn't
think that. Yeah, I probably put it badly, but I think it's just everyone
sorry, carry on, guys. Sorry.
You've got people worshipping the rain, various rituals and stuff. I think animals do what they have always done to survive. Like, they'll kill, they'll do this, they'll survive. Whereas we always, like, was there ever any proof that those dances used to bring rain, bring sun? I don't think there was, but we look for the answers and we say it. We tell ourselves, oh, we did that and it rained. It worked. We'll do it. I don't think animals ever have that sort of. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I just think the search for knowledge and a higher power is humanity, essentially, in a sense.
Yeah, I think you're right in what you're saying. I'd say, but everything is at a different level of consciousness again, which is almost a vibrational level. So you've got mineral, plants, animal, human. We're all living. But you take man, for example. Even probably a long time ago, man can have a different level of self-awareness. So we know we look stupid, where a dog will just have a wee-wee.
Yeah.
They just do it, don't they? They live off instinct. Yeah. So if we were to talk of, I mean, this will touch into what's going on now, really. How I see things that are happening now and have been for a long time, really. If you, as I said, a dog will just do what it's going to do, or an animal will, because it's instinctive. Perhaps, I'm saying a perhaps here, perhaps one day, I mean, have you ever seen how clever cats can be? I mean, cats just do what they do, but did you see that film a few years ago about, it wasn't about, it was on the news. It was an amazing bit of film, really. A little boy walking down his garden. Some sort of mastiff got the little boy by the leg and dragged him down the garden. The cat flew out of the house and attacked the mastiff and beat the mastiff off and saved the little boy. Now, the story then went into the little boy and the cat. The cat followed the little boy home one day and stayed with him forever.
Right.
And that saved that little boy's body or life or whatever. So is it possible then that suddenly then cats take a slight leap in consciousness as a group consciousness? That level of consciousness just grows a little bit by the fact that the cat has acknowledged that his human friend is in trouble and goes and puts its own life at risk attacking a mastiff.
Right.
So there's a potential probably in this great big huge imaginary game for consciousness to develop. So as human beings, I certainly haven't met any what we sometimes call aliens or other beings, although I've had one or two experiences in meditations and various things, and as a kid I saw one or two things that would make me wonder, but I can't say that I personally have had any direct experiences with beings that don't look like humans that are of a higher level, although we don't know. You might be meeting them in the street for all you know. I do know one or two people who claim that they have, and I've no reason to disbelieve them because they're really proper people. So at the moment, as human beings, we're pretty high with the potential to be pretty high, because we don't have to be instinctive. We can go, right, okay. We can have a look at ourselves and go, you've all heard of egos, guys, haven't you? So, you know, we just take them for granted. And there's nothing wrong with having egos, really, because that's part of how we learn, part of our setup. Remember the duality. The duality is in us. That's why there's male and female, positive, negative, good and bad, big and small, hot and cold. Without any of those things, this realm that we're experiencing now might not even exist. It requires one against the other one for it to exist. So if you want a realm where there's no horrible, I don't know if that's possible. I don't know. It wouldn't be like this if it was. So as human beings, we're pretty open. We can decide what we think if we become self-aware and self-conscious, and aware of consciousness, aware of how we're thinking and why we think. So that's the path of self-knowledge and Gnosticism, really, where you start to have a genuine, honest look at how you think and why you think like you do. We've got the ability to do that, which puts us, if there is such a thing as God, or whatever you want to call God, it puts us closer to the potential of being God, because we can make that choice, whereas it's difficult for an animal to make that choice because the instincts, that's it. We for whatever reason are at a point where we can decide whether or not we lustfully look at a woman when she walks in, or swear and shout, or hit somebody in the pub. Or we can go, that's not my level. I'm not any better than anybody else, but I choose over that. And that takes some getting over your mind, that does, because your mind will just automatically respond. And it'll be based upon your family, it'll be based upon your peers, where you lived, all them different things are programmed in there, what you've seen on TV, the games you played, it's all going in, and you're going to start living it out in every single moment. But the moment you start to become really aware of how you think, which is really the key, then you're getting quite close to, I don't know how close, but if you want to call it God or a higher level, you're getting quite close to it then, because you're making the decisions. And if there's a difference between a human being and an angel, that will be the difference. You know, that will be the difference. The angel won't be affected, or an angel, or whatever you want to call it, won't be affected by somebody calling him an ugly bugger. Wouldn't care. What difference would it make? Wouldn't make any difference. They're unaffected by it. And we can become that. It's a real state. And I know that possibly some of you might have some religious backgrounds, but if you look at what Christ, or Jesus Christ, the one that we know mostly of in our part of the world, is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ isn't somebody who stands outside of you. It's you already. And when Jesus says, follow me, it's to follow you inside, who you really are. So when Jesus comes down on a donkey or on an ass, it reflects, the ass represents the mind. The mind is the ass that doesn't move, or mule or ass donkey. They're very stubborn and won't move for anybody, but for the Christ it moves. And that's how I see it. That's how, from my teachings that I've done over the years, that the mule, the ass, was your mind, and your mind is yours to be in control of respectfully, and to you as well. So we've got a real possibility of getting close to a high level of being, really, really high level of being. It's there all the time for us. Now, if we were at that level of being, what's going on now wouldn't be going on. It'd be impossible. You know, the things you've seen with coronavirus rolling out, 5G rolling out all over the place, it just wouldn't happen. And in fact, we probably wouldn't need 5G. We could probably talk to each other from miles away anyway without computers. You know, because we'd be at such a level of vibration that we'd realise we're all one and we're all interconnected. You know, and there are probably beings that can do that. There more than likely are. I know we've gone off on a bit of a jaunt here, but it might come into it'll work actually. It'll work in well with what we're going to talk about. Anything else you guys want to say? Because I really can babble. I really can. I'm terrible.
No,
that's right. I'm quite happy to listen along. It's personally not the way that I think about things, but it's quite interesting hearing quite a different viewpoint to my own.
That's good.
Yeah, Corn is the player in his own computer game.
That's all right. I couldn't quite hear that. I'm sorry, guys.
Sorry, it was a joke, but Corn laughed over it and ruined it. I said Corn is the player in his own computer game, and he's got one hand on the joystick.
So if we go now then to, if you want to jump straight to 5G coronavirus and those sort of things. Okay, so we talked about there being good and bad, and that there's, when we talk of fallen angels, if you can imagine that being the level of consciousness that deliberately fell, potentially, I can't put any pictures to it or anything, but if you can imagine when we talk of fallen angels, that would be a level of consciousness that fell to give us an experience, because without the experience of there being bad, they probably, if such a thing existed, they probably gave themselves a real sacrifice there so that others could experience, or that others in that oneness could experience. So let's just say then that level of consciousness is real, and there's good and bad. And at one end you've got good, okay? I mean, I'm talking good. I mean, just like beauty and love that is just so unquestionable that you couldn't, we have with our human minds, a human mind could not fathom it. It's just so beautiful. Then coming down the scale, you get to us, and we're probably nice enough people, really, and you go down the scale all the way to the far end, which are the two different poles, like on the earth, like positive and negative. Imagine what the bad would be like. Imagine just, I mean, you wouldn't be able to imagine it because your human mind and the people you probably grew up with, it'd just be so horrible that you wouldn't imagine. You wouldn't want to imagine it. Okay, so that level exists as well. Okay, so if that level has become very identified with the power, with the with all the egos that we've all got inside of us, anger, lust, greed, envy, pride, self-concern, self-love, oh, thousands of them. We've all got them inside of us, just so we never pay attention to them. But if they become very aware of all of that and they're really identified with it, I mean, that's their lives. And they want this to carry on and stay as it is. But they need us to do it because they almost need, for this to work, they need enough minds to create, because the mind creates everything. So they're almost like a parasite, and we're the host. Okay, so if you imagine your egos are inside of you, if you're in one day, you could be a load of people. You think you're being Noah, or whoever you might be, but 1 minute you're angry, 5 minutes later you might be lustful, then you're angry again, then you're fed up, then you're sad, then you're self-concerned, then you're worried, then you're happy again. You can be all those different things, and they're linked, possibly all linked to egos, which means you're never ever quite yourself. So when we're working from ego, often it's not great for us in many ways and can lead you into things that aren't so good. It's probably pretty understandable, that. So if those egos are in us and we feed them, so if we feed, if you're a person who's likely to be angry and aggressive, and you know, some people are more that way, you know, you don't knock them, it's just how it is. I've got friends who like it. You know, they're more likely to give somebody a punch in the face, you know, that's how they are. The more they feed that with whatever they watch on telly, whatever they talk about with their friends and the people they hang around with, the more that ego is going to grow inside themselves, and the more their life might become more of it and the things around them. So if you imagine if you're those who have got the ancient secret, well, it's not necessarily secret, the esoteric hidden knowledge, the occult knowledge, and you hold that knowledge, and you want to keep this place maintained because it's where you play, but you need everybody else to play in it as much as possible, and you want to keep it going, you've got to keep using our minds. You've got to keep using our minds to keep producing what you want, because you can't do it yourself. So what it does is, like our egos are like parasites, and we're the host to our egos. Everything outside of us is no more than a reflection to what's inside of us. That's all it is. Whatever we are inside is what's outside, and it can't change. That's it. That's it. There's no way around that. So you might have different thoughts. That's how I see it. So if you're somebody who's got that esoteric knowledge, and you're more on the side of the if you like, the not so nice, you require our minds, and you're going to use our minds as much as possible, and you're going to implant things as much as you can. And the more that we awaken and get a little bit closer to knowing ourselves, the more work you've got to do. And it's quite possible that you know some of the time scale of when this is happening energetically, because you've become aware of esoteric occult knowledge that the great masses who tend to watch Love Island, get off with a girl or a boy at the weekend, play football or whatever you do, and then go to sleep, they're not going to be aware of the occult knowledge. And they're going to get rings run every day. So that's what's happening now, and it's always been happening. It's never changed. But at the same time, you've got good, and you'll have beings who are at a real level of high good. But you see, the thing is, because it's bad as well and good, the bad side has to be dodgy, tricky, and convincing, like a dodgy salesman. It will tell you this is the right car for you when you can't even see over the dashboard. The good can't do that. It can't swindle you or convince you. It can only present things for you because you've got free will, which is another act of love.
Sorry, Phil. I'd just like to jump in there on that point.
Yeah.
I think my first car actually came from you.
I was a good salesman, but I was a decent one, wasn't I?
Well, yeah, you conned me granddad anyway, and then he's a sucker for a bargain, and it weren't him that had to drive it. So
you mean Ivan?
Yeah.
Oh, Ivan, you had that little 106 was lovely.
No, it was all right. That was
the lowest mileage 106 in the world at the time. That was.
No, it did its job for me. Yeah.
That's about 10 years ago, isn't it?
6 years ago. 6 years
Is
ago.
it 6 now, blimey? I did see it on his drive. How is your granddad?
Yeah, he's fine. Well, he's staying in. He's cashing in on everyone doing his shopping for him and everything.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, loving it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, well, I lived 2 doors up from him at one time. I used to live over the road from Spa myself. So before I moved before the house I lived next door to you in, I lived not the big house next to Ivan's, but the first terraced house is where I used to live.
Yeah.
So I got to know your granddad and your nan quite well, and everybody around there. Yeah. So anyway, I was a dodgy car salesman once. That's why I talk, I suppose. But anyway, okay, going back to it. So you got these 2 levels going on. So just imagine now that you're in this game, but the game requires both good and bad. But everybody's waking up, and the trouble is, if everybody wakes up, what if you the way you understand it as being bad or whatever you want to call it? I don't want to call it anything. That if too many wake up, there'll be nothing to experience. What if that's what they believe? If we wake up and we go, we're not having any of this anymore, then there'll be no experience. You could say, that'll be a good thing. But what if then you can't hold your newborn baby because that doesn't happen anymore? You can't witness the view from a mountain looking out to sea. At the same time, though, you wouldn't be witness to somebody having the head stabbed, which is really horrible, because you wouldn't have either, because none of it would exist. So it's quite.
Sorry. So can I just try and get my head around this? So are you talking about? So you say you can't do those things. Do you mean you can do them, but you're sort of detaching yourself emotionally?
You wouldn't appreciate.
You'd hold your baby, but you'd feel nothing.
What I'm potentially saying is that if let's just say you're one of the levels of being in the occult. I mean, the occult only means hidden, but let's say it's and all the knowledge is neutral. But let's say that you use the neutral, the knowledge for the more negative side of keeping existence going, and you're aware of it. Not like we are now. You're aware of it, and you've been using it for years, and your family have. So let's just say that you're one of those guys, and as far as you're concerned, if good and bad doesn't exist, and you don't do what you do, and too many people awaken to their true selves, there'll be no experience. What I'm saying is there won't be anything. There'll be nothing to touch. There'll be nothing to touch. So what I'm saying is I'm not defending these guys that are doing horrible things. What I'm saying is that could be the case. I think that makes sense. Our realm needs both to exist. Having said that, it could genuinely be that we just move up to a slightly nicer vibration and life gets a bit nicer. Gets a bit more peaceful, a bit happier. It could be just that. So I'm open to all of those things. But where I'm coming to with this is, whilst we might call these guys evil, Illuminati, you must have heard that phrase, Illuminati. Whilst I get really angry with them sometimes about the things I'm seeing rolling out now. If I stand back and you can have an ability if you practice at standing back and looking outside of it so that you're not part of it anymore. And you're seeing it like a movie playing out. So when you do that, you see it from a different angle, a different perspective. Like when a business has arguing directors and they call in an external person. And you think, what are we spending money on him for? But what he does, he sits outside, listens to all the arguments and goes, whoa, right, okay, let's sort this out. So it's like doing it like that and looking at it all going on. They're only doing it because it's their role to do it. It doesn't mean we've got to let them just do it, because we'd end up with a really horrible existence. So these things that are happening now are part of a long running agenda, and it's been going on for ages. Okay, so some of you guys are probably too young to remember some things, whereas I'm 50 now, so I remember how things were. They weren't necessarily all brilliant. I mean, in the early 80s, mid 80s, if you walked into Birmingham, you're likely to get your leg kicked in. That's how it was. It probably went nicer as it time went by. Some things went a lot better. But what we've tended to have done is, because we've always been pushed to be focused on the physical, we've had faster cars, faster kettles, nicer looking houses, blah 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 blah. But we've never really risen or raised very much in terms of internal consciousness. There's a great potential for us to do it, but we haven't necessarily become en masse more beautiful inside, if you get what I mean. Everything's been pointed outwards, and there's a reason for that, because they're keeping this going, and and our minds are used for that purpose, almost like a parasite to a host. So all these things have been happening for years. We've had the Twin Towers. We had Brexit just a few months ago. That's all forgotten about now. A few months ago, everybody was saying all the MPs, the politicians are all a bunch of idiots. Now, well, not necessarily quite so much now, but a couple of months ago, they were going, oh, Boris Johnson, they're all amazing. Oh, they've done an amazing job. What they done?
Yeah.
I didn't see anything amazing. They've protected us so well in all of this. We've all got to sit in our houses for 2 months and watch our economies crash and all the businesses fail. They're amazing. 3 months ago, a bunch of idiots have cocked up Brexit. I would say Brexit was a deliberate cock up, knowing the pandemic was coming. It was held on deliberately, because what was actually taking place with Brexit, what's going on with all of this over the years, and it started a long time ago. But in the 70s, the common market was brought out, where everybody traded together as countries. It developed from then on. And basically what we were saying when we said, right, the UK wants to come out of the EU, is that we didn't want a handful of people controlling this country. We wanted to be the decision makers of our own country, rather than as few controlling the many. So that's what it's all about. It's a handful of beings controlling a lot. And that's what it's all about. And look how easy it's been this last few months. Just to look how easy it's been. So when we said we'd come out of the EU, they had 3 years to do it. No, I'm not a politician. I know there's probably a lot of mess and loads to sort out. So, but we said after 3 years, lots and lots of people, after 3 years, said, why is it not sorted out by now? And then we had a load of mess again all the way until the end of the year. So, end of the year comes, Boris Johnson comes in as Prime Minister, possibly the right man for the job. Might be for good or for bad. I want to put that in just for a moment. And then suddenly we have a pandemic, and in that pandemic, or so-called pandemic, all these new rules have to come out, where they've taken all your civil liberties off you. And also, now, they want to track and trace you, vaccinate you, microchip you. And we were fighting against 5G. Lots of people. Well, I know it's not been massive, but there are plenty of people fighting against 5G, and we'll come on to that in a second. Also, Greta Thunberg was unleashed on everybody. Well, if I sent my daughter outside Bromsgrove North and said, right, sit there, the whole of the media will get hold of you doing this, and you'll be all over the world, wouldn't have happened. That's because she's meant to be doing it, because she's been aimed to do it, and she's part of the clan to do it. Yeah, so you've got that going on, trying to convince everybody that, you know, we're the ones who have caused all the problems. We cause some problems, we do, but it's a bit deeper than that. And then you've got Extinction Rebellion, which seems to have a good purpose, but just look behind it and what's really going on, and you find that it ain't got a good purpose, really. It really ain't. So those two things were being pushed hard last year, and I don't think they made as much impact as what was hoped, because plenty of scientists were saying what a load of nonsense. And I think this move for the pandemic came a bit quicker than it feels like it happened very quickly, and it feels like it would have been a bit more time. Have any of you guys heard of Agenda 21 and Agenda 30?
Yep. There's something
okay.
I wanted to bring you up to you about, to be honest. But
yeah. Well, Agenda 21 was signed off in '92 by loads of countries, and it usurps governments. So whatever government you got, it won't matter, because whatever they say is happening. Which is why taxing cars got more expensive and all those sort of things. For sustainability, which sounds good. We're going to have to sustain our planet. We need less people. And most of those people forced into smaller areas so we can monitor you all, while the rich stay very, very rich and feed off. You know, so that's what it was heading to. So then you got Agenda 30, which is a continuation. So we're in year 2020 with 21 just around the corner. So we've gone into this year with this so-called pandemic, and I'm not saying there isn't some form of virus out there. I'm not saying that, but if you can go and have a look, you'll find Event 201, which some of you guys might have seen already, which was an event held toward the end of last year where Bill Gates, John Hopkins, Rockefeller, all the usual names are all involved in a test run of if a coronavirus was released in New York or something like that, just by coincidence. Have you guys ever seen Harry Box, the talk he did in 2014 about a Rockefeller paper from 2010?
I haven't.
If you haven't seen that, you've got to find that. You'll find that so interesting. Everything that's happening now is in it, and it was written in 2010.
Well,
apart from the name of the virus, it was based on an Ebola, but it said it come from wild geese, a wild goose chase. At the end of it, it says that everything turns totalitarian, and it stays that way at the end of the report. 61-page report. Okay, so, and it's you know, these things have been going on for years. There's nothing new. But the way it works as well is that it's implanted. It's given to you like when you write a business plan and you all focus on it and go for it. So what happens is they plant things in films, they plant things in the news, they tell you what they're going to do, and it's implanted in your psyche. If you don't go, I'm not having it, that's their go ahead, and that's how it works, and that's how they use our minds. So I'm calling them they, but they're ultimately our egos inside, reflected out there. So all we've got to do is change inside, and it ends. It's so hard to just say that, isn't it? Come on, everybody change tomorrow into something beautiful. You know, it's difficult to do that. So we've still got this exciting game to play, you know, that we're in. So just before I think you wanted to say something, just before you carry on. So I would suggest maybe, potentially, Brexit was dragged out with a knowledge of what was to come at the beginning of the year, because at the end of the day, instead of being handed over via the EU, we're going to be handed over via the pandemic to the same people. So I kept saying last year, this is a waste of time in a way, because somehow a way will be found for us not to get out of it, because that's not on the agenda, you know. And this is the way. It's not just on the UK. There's lots of things being done with the pandemic in America. That, you know, they're using it to oust Trump if they can. Trump, I don't know for certain if he's good or bad. What I've seen is quite a lot of good from him in recent times, and there's a lot of talk about him being good, and a force behind him that's good.
Yeah.
But, and
he was actually doing really good, getting unemployment numbers down and getting the economy up until obviously
well, there you go. So
until Bill Gates said none of that, lad.
Yeah. Well, Bill Gates is I can tell from what you say. You know, he's a massive player in it all, I would suggest it's probably just a front man of the real power, as many of them will be. Elon Musk, a question asked lots of people. Elon Musk, I tell you what, you go and say, right, I want to stick 40,000 satellites in the sky and see what your answer is. You can just do it. You know? Does nobody think that's a bit, whoa, oh yeah, you can just do that. You know, these are just questions that we need to ask ourselves, really. Not get too worried about it, I suppose. But so, does anybody got anything else to say there? Sorry, I don't mean to rule it all and everything. I can natural way I can.
Yeah, it's all good. I wanted to just jump in and clarify something what you were saying, because you were sort of like you said, rambling on a bit. I just wanted to clarify certain points. I just wanted to ask you if you think, or I think it was a blatant PR move for Boris Johnson to say he got the virus, and I think that's been a huge tool in the way that the media control the public into convincing us that it's for your own good to give up your civil liberties.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I would say that was. I'm not. It's impossible. You know, it's absolutely impossible for any of us to say that's definitely the case, or he was definitely ill. No, actually, he was in hospital, definitely ill. But the first time, as soon as he went in, I said this is probably a scam. As soon as it was on the news, I thought probably a scam. It's just another part of all the things you've just said. I'd be in agreement with. That's probably what was going on. I can't say 100%, but yeah, probably was what was taking place. You know, and we're getting this track and trace thing now that's been released. Track and trace, you don't have to have the virus. It was wanted in the first place. But if they came out to you and said, right, what we want to do, we want you all to sit in your houses while we roll out this technology that's going to control you. We want you all to accept being traced and tracked. And we're going to put those on you. They're going on your phones. And all of you as well. In fact, every single one of you, we're going to want to vaccinate all of you. Don't really want to tell you what's in it, but we're going to vaccinate all of you. And we're also going to, eventually, we're going to put a microchip in you. And all right then. They ain't going to do that, are they? They're going to find, I mean, China might do something more like that in some parts of China. But here, things are done bit by bit. And I've repeated this thing in all podcasts I've done, probably, in all the talks. I've been repeating this thing for years. Let's say that one of you guys, your houses lived beyond, you lived in a house behind my house, and our back garden backed onto each other. And I thought, I want his garden. I want all of my garden, and I want all his garden as well. If I came round and said to you, can I have your garden? You go, no. I go, all right then. But then I might come round another day and then go, can you just have 4 foot off the bottom of your garden? You never use it. Just want to plant some tomatoes. You might go, go on then. After 10 years of me asking for bits of your garden, one day you walk in the back and you got no garden. You go, well, nice had all the garden. So the way it's done is so that you don't really spot it. And it's been done in all ways of life to get into our psyches. For example, television. Television started long before I was born. But if you look at what's been on television over the years, it would never have been accepted years ago. So get that off. Filled with sex, violence, swear words, horrible visions, all horrible stuff. We don't want that on our television. That's not what we want. But so what happens is, bit by bit, a little bit goes on, and it gets worse. Well, that's how it all works. It's step by step. I would suggest that this pandemic bit was a bit of a leap. It took a big jump in the agenda, you know, and all these things like you're saying about PR stunts. Yeah. Dominic Cummings, this recent one, I don't exactly know, but there's something not right about that to me, you know.
Yeah. Well, I follow David Icke, and he calls it the totalitarian tiptoe.
Yeah. He's. I mean, whatever anybody says about him, he's. I can't say everything's 100% right. It's, you know, who could be, but he comes across with a lot of stuff that, you know, is near to the mark. And his research on the interlinking people in the secret society networks and what have you is, you know, big, you know. So
well, just quickly on the Dominic Cummings point. I might be oversimplifying it, but to me that seems to be sort of going against the so-called agenda, sort of breaking their own rules. And I know me and Rob were talking earlier, and it seems to have had a bit of a knock-on effect where people are going, you know, he's done that, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and see my friend. And it seems to be sort of working. You know, it's a force in the opposite direction, which is
Can
good.
I just say that politics and those sort of positions naturally, like by their nature, they attract like narcissists, and narcissists think they're smarter than you. So, like, this is why they underestimate people. This is why, like when you said the pandemic is a bit of a leap too far, they're always going to show their hand eventually, just because they think that they're smarter than you. They think they're above you. So I think that that's the case for the Cummins situation. I think he knows it. He's seen the figures. He knows that this virus isn't anywhere near as deadly as they've been reported. And he's gone, oh, I'm going to do what I want. He's got caught.
Which we're all supposed to do, really. We you know, there is another side to this with potentially with Cummings as well. Remember I said there's good and bad? It's a simple thing. So if you were in that world of politics and what have you, and you were playing on the good side, but you can't show it yet, or there's a few of you that are on the good side, you might do things that make people go, hold on a minute. You might make yourself look a div, or put yourself into problems, but it might be something you have to do to show people, look, you can go out. For Christ's sake, go out, everybody, do something about this. So if it was you, for example, one of you guys, and you were in that position, you think, how can I get people to walk out before it's too late? You might do something like that to get people going. If you can do it, I'm doing it. And I'm not saying that's what he's done. I don't know for certain, because he might be an horrible, slimy character, mightn't he? And as you said, psychopaths and what have you are encouraged into it. But it could still be the case. Harry Potter, I've mentioned this a few times. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, but if any of you guys watch the Harry Potter films, all the good and bad guys were in it together. And one of the characters, Snape, played like a bad guy who turned out to really be working for good. And I'm sure that there'll be characters like that playing the game. So you never know. Even Boris Johnson.
Hopefully.
I don't know. I can't sit and listen to him. I want to kill him. I'm not violent at all, but there are times when I'm listening, I feel like I can't watch it. I've got to get out of the room. I'm getting so bored up. It's terrible. But it could be a good guy, for all we know when it comes to it. We don't know for certain. But
well, they certainly break the illusion that politicians are better than us. I mean, like if you needed any more evidence that they're just a man in a pair of socks like you who hasn't really got.
It's for certain, isn't it? I mean, I get annoyed sometimes in when Matt Hancock's involved in stuff. Did you read the Guardian report last week when Track and Trace was coming out? When he was talking about it, they said they're going to spend. Now I'm going to come on to the money thing in a minute and see what I put stuff out on Facebook like mad. And I never used to. I wasn't much of a Facebook guy, but I this has really come up, and I've tried to put stuff out there. I'm chasing after the local MP, mayors of Worcester and bishops. I'm after people to try and get something done. But I put a lot of stuff out on Facebook, and I put stuff out, and it amazes me how many intelligent people still don't get it. They're still not seeing it. So I'll talk about this bit first, and I'll move on to some other bits that are connected. In this news report, it said that Track and Trace was going to run out. If there's nothing wrong with you and you get picked up on the Track and Trace, you will have to sit in your house for 2 weeks, even if there's nothing wrong with you. They're going to employ, or they're going to give local authorities. They're putting £300 million aside to give to local authorities to put. This is the words: boots on the ground. This is army talk, like lockdown, prison. Boots on the ground. Who will come to your house or ring you up to make sure that you're staying in. Think about that. So when they say they're going to put £300 million towards it, that means the country's going to pay. That means we're going to pay.
Yeah.
On top of that, 1.65 billion is going to go towards vaccinating the whole planet over 5 years from this country. 93 million is going to make a new vaccination centre, and we're going to pay 15,000 Serco workers to handle the trace and track. So what we're basically doing is paying for our own vaccinations that we don't necessarily want, for people to track and trace us and to come and knock on our doors and tell us that you shouldn't be coming out. And we're paying for it when we're just about to go into the world's biggest recession.
Yeah.
Hey, does that not make anybody think, oh, no, that's a bit wrong, isn't it?
Yeah, I brought this up on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, like you said, when they first started reporting it. But I didn't go into depth about it because I didn't know all the facts. But we all kind of agreed that it's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, we're in this pandemic route now, and we know that if we focus on I'll quieten down a bit and focus on just the pandemic. We know that the lots and lots of coronavirus deaths have gone on to death certificates that weren't coronavirus deaths. I've had people tell me personally, but if you go and look at the ONS, Office of National Statistics, and there's another one, DSHC, I think, it tells you what they're doing. It actually says officially that they're going to put non-coronavirus deaths on the death certificates. It tells you they're doing it. And then there was another report, which is getting interesting now because the mainstream are also telling you. That becomes interesting then because that means they're trying to get more permission. They're telling you more, and as long as we don't respond, they're getting more permission off us. So it said the other day that
4 feet off your garden.
Yeah, so tens of thousands of entries for coronavirus cases have been double entered. Tens of thousands. I mean, how many is that then? You know, and then also the original testing was 80% false positives. We've always got coronavirus in our system, pretty much nearly always, because that's what we are. We have to have a virus in us because that's how we fight it. And if you've had the, apparently, I'm not saying 100%, but there is news also saying that if you've had the flu jab, which I think is possibly quite dodgy, but anyway, if you have the flu jab, you've probably got coronavirus in you. Also turns out that I saw a report earlier that something like 270 people under the age of 60 died in this country of COVID-19. I mean, the figures don't weigh up a pandemic. It might mean go and be a little bit careful. Put your hands in your mouth, over your mouth when you cough, wash your hands, and get on with your lives. But you don't completely and utterly close down a whole country, tell everybody they've got to sit in the house, and
shut down the economy.
Out of everybody. You don't do that, do you?
No.
You know, and that's exactly what's happened. So then you've got to look at why they've done it. Well, we're going into a totalitarian state. That's where we're headed. Where this is where the technology comes in. 5G, 6G rolls out. 5G is not for your fun, not for anybody's fun. We've got to become addicted completely and utterly to our technology. Kids can't put it down. And I've said it to our kids, you know, they say, we're not on it now though, Dad. I said, yeah, it's because you're talking to me. I stopped talking, you're back on it. Yeah, but we went to the beach. Yeah, but as soon as you're back off the beach, you're back on it. You're only not on it if you're doing something else. And that's how we've got. So they've got us addicted, which is the first thing. It's took a little while, but it's there. So the addiction's there. We can't go without it. And then what this network will do, it will facilitate total and utter data monitoring, data correlation, facial recognition, a lot of which is happening in China, I understand. In schools, our two daughters went to North last year. I was the only parents, as far as I could tell, who was questioning the fact that they want to take our daughters' fingerprints so they could buy things. They took all our daughters and all our kids' fingerprints at school. And I said to the people at the school, you know, respectfully, I might rant a bit here, but I'm not. I'm always respectful to people. They said to me, you haven't got to worry, Mr. Haynes. Our system is only linked to the vendor. And I said, where's your vendor system linked to? And she went, oh, I don't know. I said, there you go. So they've now got probably 80% of 13, 14-year-olds' fingerprints on record. Okay, so they've got fingerprints, facial recognition. So CCTV cameras and a network that we made and laid down for ourselves for our own open prison. We made our own open prison. That's how they got into our mind.
Can I just jump in a sec? Sorry.
Yeah, push. Can I'm ranting again? Sorry.
I don't know if if Corn and Rob remember, but that fingerprint thing was actually brought into North in our last year there, which is a long time ago now.
I don't think I went enough, to be honest, to remember that.
But I mean, I'm not sort of too sort of panicky with stuff, but I remember I objected. I didn't let them take my fingerprint so I could buy.
Oh, good lad.
a bacon roll. I always gave my money to a mate of ours and said, go and get me a bacon roll. I didn't think of it in a sort of total control of the population. I thought, oh, well, I don't want them giving this to the police or to whoever. Not that I'm planning on doing anything.
Yeah, then you'd get caught.
So.
Well, my era of growing up as a kid, if your dad, if you'd have gone home to my dad and said they want my fingerprints, my dad would go, you don't give me your bloody fingerprints. You don't do it. Not unless you're involved in something, then you got to give the fingerprints to get you away from it. You don't give your fingerprints over for anything. So what we've got a situation is, as this technology rolls out further and further, it's going to drive cars. You won't drive your own car. It's going to be able to see all of your transactions in real time. Okay, when you get your microchip in you, the microchip will allow you to buy and sell. Anybody who's read the Bible will know that's in the Bible. But it will allow you to buy and sell. But also, it'll have all your information on all of the transactions, all the places you go, all the places you visit, all the things you owe, and all the statutes that you break, because they're not laws, most of these things, they're statutes. Okay? So, there's one example given by a guy called Max Egan. I don't know if you've ever watched him. He's an interesting guy to watch from Australia. And he said, and I can only half quote him, because I don't know if it was 100% true, because it's what he said, but I can't, again, no reason to think he was lying. In China, a man jaywalked, went across him, and he was on red. I do that because I'm not going to wait for cars that are miles away. I've got my own mind. I know when I can cross the road. I don't need someone to tell me. And probably all guys are the same. It ain't being very clever, is it? It's just normal. But this guy crossed the road, and facial recognition picked him up. They took his money out of his account immediately, and they restricted him on his allowances. And his allowances might be the ability to go to a football match, get on a train, fly. Okay, so the total control you're going to get, it's like when you get computer companies working on networks that are going to converge, but you want them all automated. That's what's happening. The whole thing will be completely and utterly automated. We will become devices on the Internet of Things network. There will be nowhere you can go, you speak against the government like we are now. It will be known about then. It won't be known about in a week. It will be known about then, straight away. It's known about now, in fact. The difference is we can run away at the moment if we leave our phone at home. Once you got that microchip in you, you will be anywhere. Now you're there. There's 40,000 satellites going up in the sky to connect up to the 5G network on the ground. There's a matrix grid being created, and I've also, and you've seen this as well, because if you've seen David Icke talking about it, the wish for the human cloud, and for humans not to have to think anymore. So we're becoming AI. So eventually, where this is heading, because we're not needed. We've done all the building. There was an Oasis song 20 years ago where they sing in it. Ordinary people that are like you and me were the builders of their destiny. So we've done all the building now. We've stuck all built all the buildings up, built all the beautiful places. We've stuck all the cabling down, and we've stuck all the Wi-Fi up. We've put all the CCTV up. They can imprison us now, get our numbers down, make us half human through transhumanism, make us half human, and then feed off us. But we won't be quite what we were. We won't be human beings. And the other side that it might do to us as well is we've always got the potential to consciously ascend. We can become more than we are. But when you're really like we are now, to a degree, we're mind controlled. That's what government stands for. You might know that. Government means mind control. Ment is mind, govern, it's control. Government actually means mind control in Latin. I think it's Latin. So we're mind controlled now. And we're fed with fear. Our egos are fed all the time. We have wonderful moments of love and kindness when we become our real selves of beauty. I mean, you can overrule anything then. We're at our most powerful. But obviously the fear is always dumped on us in every way possible. One interesting thing that's been said recently, what happened to all the terrorists in the last 3 months? You know, where have they all suddenly gone? The terrorists we're all supposed to be afraid of. You know?
Another important question is, what's happened to all the homeless people?
God,
They're
I mean,
probably somewhere getting experimented on right now.
yeah, you know, I mean, what's happening to those guys now with what's happening now with the finances that the state they're going to be in, our finances as a country, what's going to happen to them guys? I mean, there's 330 billion put to one side for businesses, but they've got to pay back.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were a gangster, you couldn't have done it any better. You know, smash the economy, then give somebody a loan to pay it back plus interest. Well, I mean, what a way to imprison you. So all the things that happen to us imprison our minds. So the real key to all of it really is to get yourself out of imprisonment, and that's by getting in control of your mind as much as possible, really. But so that's where it's heading with the pandemic and 5G and all that network system. The things that are rolling out, that will be done automatically. It'll all be done automatically in the moment, real time. There'll be no escaping it. You're going to be a device on the Internet of Things network, just like this computer is at the moment, but it'll be the Internet of Things. It'll develop into the human cloud. So that's where, I mean, you've heard Ike say this as well. I'm sure you have. I'm not sure what your name is, but whatever he said, the virus ticks every box.
Yeah.
It does. It ticks every box. It does everything. It frightens people, keeps you locked in, gets you to hand your civil liberties over, gets you to be so frightened of each other you won't go anywhere near each other. All the things, it does it beautifully, as long as you keep believing in it. So, you know, that's what it's being used for. We can stop it. We can stop it. We've got to wake up, and we are stopping it to a certain degree, I think. Because when they have to come out and start telling you on mainstream, for example, May the 11th, Chris Whitty, who this month is going to be joining the World Health Organization, Chris Whitty, I said that because it's all corrupted and in control of by Bill Gates. Chris Whitty announced on the 11th, pretty much, if you can find the briefing he did, he pretty much said the virus is nothing to worry about unless you're very old and got something wrong with you. That's pretty much what he said. Now, when the media is saying that to mainstream media, that's giving you a message, that is. It gives me the message that they're trying to trick me even more because they know there's an awakening going on. So they're going to tell you blatantly. And if you don't wake up then, you're really giving them the go-ahead to do everything. You're really handing over all your powers. And that's what we're doing at the moment. Fortunately, there's a lot more people waking up as well, so there's something going against it. But we've got to keep it as peaceful as possible because any fighting and rioting walks straight into their hand. You know, they'll just clamp down even more. We've had to do these new rules to protect you from yourselves. Will be happening, you know. So we've got to be a bit careful of that. So that's where 5G connects in with the control side of things, I think, with all of that. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
Yeah, I agreed with probably 90% of what you just said.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Yeah, great. Well, I don't mind. We all good thing to disagree as well, because that's how you're learning it. When you know, when somebody else says something new that you go, whoa, I never thought of that. It's cool when that happens, isn't it? You know, so it's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think
anybody else got any thoughts or anything?
Points. I think you've raised some real fascinating points. Certainly,
Yeah.
I'm going to say a lot of stuff that I've not thought about. One thing I did think about, which you sort of, I thought you were going to, well, you sort of did touch on it, was the sort of, I mean, I thought this a couple of weeks ago when it happened, just when the numbers were starting to come down, sort of 800,
Yeah.
and then it was sort of 600, 300, 100, and it was probably about a month ago when the numbers were really starting to come down, and we thought,
Yeah.
lockdown finishing. Then conveniently they started attaching the care home stats to boost the numbers.
Yes, yeah.
And it just, even at the time, didn't sit right with me. I thought, you know, they're obviously manipulating the statistics here. Everyone,
Yeah.
But then,
Can I just jump in there and say, even the wording on the news from the very start, they were saying deaths related to COVID-19. That's not the same thing as people dying of COVID-19.
Having died with.
If you died from cancer and you had that, then they were listing it as. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's what was going on.
Especially in the care homes, because a lot of, obviously, they're all close together. A lot of these people, you know, it's a harsh truth. They're near the end anyway. That's why they're there. And I think I could be wrong, and don't quote me on this, but I think sort of pneumonia is one of the top killers of the really old.
It is, yeah.
I've lost family members to it myself. So obviously, if these people are all together, 20, 30 people in millions of care homes across the world, they're going to have COVID-19 in their system, but pneumonia and other things are the finishing blow, and these people would have died anyway if there's no pandemic. And they're being used to boost statistics to keep us in fear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's something to think about.
Did you look at the statistics? Have you ever had a look at how the statistics are done as well? But the first thing I started looking at was Italy and Spain. I don't know why I did that really, but what I started to look at was Italy's death rates and Spain's death rates. It's a couple of months ago now, but they were unchanged from what I could tell. I mean, an average of something like 12 to 1,800 people a day die there, and that's quite normal. It's normal. So what we've got is, the thing is, you have to be quite careful sometimes when you talk about things, because people go, yeah, but people are dying, you're heartless, you don't care. So it's not true, because what we're forgetting is that a massive amount of people die every day. Every year, something like 50 to 60 million people die on the planet every year. It's part of living. It's what happens, So, but we get really attached with the fact that, you've been so heartless, because I know my next door neighbours, whoever it might be down the road, whoever died of it. Did they die of it? No, you don't know, because it's been so messed about with. And when you look at when the statistics come out, often they say, well, 900 people died today. It's not the case. Some of them statistics are from 2 or 3 days ago. It really is true when you start looking at it all. The whole thing is just complete. It's not right. None of it is. It's all really, really wrong how it's been recorded. I thought you were going to touch on there as well, the 5G connection, because obviously there's a lot of trouble going on recently, which is what brought a lot of stuff off Facebook with the 5G and coronavirus connection. I would suggest that 5G and all radio waves and whatever aren't good for you. They probably don't hurt you for a few minutes, but when you're in Wi-Fi, 4G and coming 5G 24/7, they're not going to be good for you. It's fairly obvious. Even the corrupted World Health Organization in 2011 made mobile communications a class 2 carcinogenic, and many scientists said it should be made a class 1. And then you got the IEEE, which is the biggest organisation of its kind. I can't think what it's called now exactly, but it's to do with electricians and electrical magnetic professionals, stated in a document last year to keep away from your Wi-Fi, keep away from mobile. That's the conclusion on a proper paper. So none of it's very good for you. So something that I did, I don't know if you noticed this when it kicked off, and the reason why when you were starting to talk about 5G, talk about the numbers was I'd said a couple of months back, is when the figures get to a certain point, I bet 5G will get switched on in more places. About a week after, it come out that 5G was about to get switched on in more places, and then all the figures went up right at the same time. So if you follow Wuhan and what happened in Wuhan, 5G had just been switched on. People were dropping to the ground. You've possibly heard of the 60 gigahertz thing. I don't know if you have or not, but at 60 gigahertz, at that frequency, you get a thing called oxygen absorption. And I'm not saying this is 100% certain, but some are. I'm not certain if it will have an effect on human beings, but oxygen absorption is a real phenomenon at 60 gigahertz. But the effect it could have potentially is on the hemoglobin and attaching it to the blood cells, which means you don't get any oxygen in your system. So when we see people drop into the ground like they were in Wuhan, the thought was, have they got a virus and 5G is making it worse because of 60 gigahertz, taking all the oxygen out the environment. Imagine having a month of 60 gigahertz if that's what happens. If they switch it to 60 gigahertz, can do 0 to 300 5G can. It's going to 6G in the next 10 years. It's going to 6G. It's going to go even higher. So you got Mark Steele from up north saying it's a direct energy weapons system. Have a look at some of his work. I mean, I've had him on my little radio show. Some of his stuff is quite frighteningly realistic. I can't say all of it, but I would say that what he's saying is true. So in Italy and Spain, Italy had rollout of 5G. I was in my kitchen having a sandwich 2 months ago, and on the news, when it was all kicking off before we had lockdown here, I heard them saying in Italy on a news report, We don't know why it's so bad here. We have no idea why. It doesn't make any sense. There's Lombardy. I went and checked out. It just had 5G rollouts. So I thought, oh, and all that area had. Then you check Spain out. Spain had a form of 5G over 4G since 2018. Then they had 58 cities go live with 5G in 2019. So they just had it. We had it, and then we had another 21 towns and cities go live halfway through this pandemic, and that's when the numbers all started going up. I'm not saying it's the cause, but it has an effect on our immune systems. All this, it's radiation poisoning to a certain degree. I know we like to believe that there's no problem, but it's got to have an issue on you. Now, I don't know if that's adjustable at source. Can we run it at 24 gigahertz and then whack it up to 60? We wouldn't notice because we just got our phones working. But are we feeling a bit more tired? There's a lot of people out there who over the last few years have been having real problems with radio frequency, headaches, lethargic, aching, problems with their bodies, all kinds of stuff. Fuzzy minds, they can't think properly, and we're getting more and more and more of it. So in two issues, potentially there's a link in terms of it will be knocking your immune system around and doing all sorts to you. I think it's going to be horrendous to our health as time goes by, and it ain't going to make us any healthier. And 3, controls. The number 4 one of the direct energy weapons, using frequency. Well, before anybody can poo-poo that, not you guys, you wouldn't, but before anybody go, it's just nonsense. Take the name tags off 5G and 4G and 3G. What you've got is frequency, and whatever is possible in that frequency range. And there was in the 70s a true story. The Russians on the American embassy fired low-level frequencies permanently at the American embassy, and they all went down with severe illnesses and cancers. Proven story, real story. So there you go. So there's an awful lot going on. It all interlinks. Through Agenda 21, Agenda 30 and sustainability, I suspect there is an aim to bring the populations down. We've heard Bill Gates say it himself as well in talks. In terms of the pandemic, Bill Gates said there'd be one back in 2015. Fauci in America in 2017 said Trump's going to get one, a surprise pandemic. How would he know? He's got one. And then there's been all these practice runs. So, we've just got to wise up probably a little bit. And, we can have a lovely life. And none of these things are new. It's just a new step. And instead of it being a totalitarian tiptoe, it's been quite a bit of a leap into this, really. We've got to refuse track and trace, point blank. Don't want it. Don't want anything like it. We've got to refuse microchipping. Loads of kids in the third world have had Bill Gates' microchip. They've got it already. They've got it ready to monitor what vaccines they're having. So they know what vaccines they have and haven't got. ID 2020 are making them. 2003, I was offered to invest into a microchipping company that was going to microchip babies. Really true, honestly. Yeah. And it was sold in such a way that if you're a good parent, you'll do it. If you're a caring parent, because you'll know where your child is all the time. We've had trackers on cars. We've just been... The things are done in little steps. They're all done in little bits. So you don't really notice. And, they take a little bit off you, and it works that way. And then the older guys, they all die. My uncle went through World War II, and I loved him. He was a great bloke. Tough old fella. Wouldn't have put up with any nonsense. He would now be going mental. He'd be going mad, he would know. He'd think, what on earth? What was all that for when I was 17, being shot, stabbed, and kept in a prison camp and escaping and getting back to the UK? That's apparently what my dad told me he did. He must now be thinking, what on earth was all that for? You just handed it all over, all of it, for the sake of a little bit of a slightly nastier flu. We've really got to probably grab hold of ourselves. I'd say.
Yeah.
But you can only look in the mirror and blame ourselves, because all we've got to do is change a little bit, and then it changes a little bit. Even in our own little lives, our own personal lives, we change the way we think a bit, and our lives change a bit. So when we all do it together, it just changes a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah, some real fascinating trails of thought there. Really.
Is it too much? Have I gone on too much? Because it's a difficult one, really. There's so much I'd love to say, and it's hard to pull it all out.
No, yeah, it's not.
It's
been brilliant.
Yeah, we'll have you back on. You know, if there's things you want to, you know, different topics you want to discuss. But I think we've covered.
You want to talk? I mean, just before you go and before we all go, talk quite a bit about the last bit there on pandemic and 5G and all that sort of stuff. What are your? Because I'm always interested in everybody else. I mean, I shouldn't just be the one talking. I want to hear what everybody feels and if you've got any thoughts on it all and anything that you'd like to do about it. You know, you know, if we all do a little bit together. I always say that, you know, I get told off sometimes for talking to people in the street about it or in the shop. I'll tell people. Anybody in the shop when they're serving me, I'll tell them about what's going on. And some are open to it, some aren't. And I just think to myself that even if that person fully 100% believed that in all the pandemic and was living, you know, in the fear and all that sort of stuff, if suddenly they feel like, I don't believe it anymore, what you've done is, because everything's energy, isn't it? Everything's energy. You've just taken a bit of energy away from that train of thought. It's come over now to something better. Even just that train of thought's changed now. That's helped. So then somebody thinks, right, I'm going to go after the MP as well, and I'm going to go after the MP as well. You know, you just build up a bit of energetical strength behind what's going on.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as to what sort of I think, I'm going to be honest. I don't necessarily agree with some of the stuff you've said.
No, that's wicked.
You know, really great to sort of hear different views and everything.
Yeah.
You know, I agree. We should not just be. We shouldn't accept everything we're told. Obviously, everyone knows now not to trust the mainstream medias and everything they read online, which is great. People are waking up to that.
Yeah.
I don't think we should believe everything we're told. I don't necessarily buy into this sort of higher agenda and all that. Obviously, the government is there to control and stuff, but you know, I don't necessarily buy into this sort of one agenda sort of theories.
Okay.
But I definitely agree that sort of fear, you know, if there was this agenda or even if there isn't, I think, you know, fear is their greatest tool, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Trying to keep us safe and keep us, you know, believing that it's worse than it is, you know, no matter, even if they are doing it for our good or if they're doing it to control us, whatever you believe on that.
That's it. Yeah, the amount
whatever
of
you believe, fear is their greatest. And, you know, but I don't want to sit here and say it's not as bad as they say it is. So get out there and, you know, because there is some very real risks out there. And I don't want to encourage anyone listening to this, or I don't want to say the government's all lies, go out, you know, nothing's to worry about, because I don't believe that's the case. But all I would say sort of this will be everything from me. All I'll say is just obviously do what we've done. Listen to different people's views like we have tonight. And just do your own thinking. That for me, that's the point I want to finish on. Just do your own.
That's what you've got to do.
Do your own thinking. You know, stay safe. Don't take any unnecessary risks, but just think for yourself. That's it from me.
Yeah, no, that's a good point to end on. I think that's has been one of the biggest things that I've noticed is people just believe absolutely everything they're told. Everything the BBC News say, which often is a load of rubbish anyway. They've got an audience that will just accept everything they say, and I think that's the most dangerous thing. And I think, just to back up what Sam said, everyone does just need to think for themselves, weigh up the options, listen to different opinions, and and think for yourself.
But equally, that does go the other way as well. People are very happy to listen to like what their friends and family tell them. As well, and then because they've got that emotional link with someone that they're listening to, might not question what they're saying. You need to think critically and analytically about all kinds of things you hear. Not specifically close yourself down to particular things, because if you blinker yourself to particular things and don't listen to only listen to particular things, that's where you kind of go down a rabbit hole. And
that's a very good point there, Colin. I mean, you can't just go to imright.com and then believe everything that's on there. You know, you have to keep an open mind. I'll admit that I've been a bit more biased towards the conspiracy side of things on this particular thing, because the first night that we went into lockdown, or like the night before, when they closed all the gyms and things like that, my boxing coach actually like came up to me and was like, "It's like, you know, this is all bull." I was like, "Okay." He was like, "Yeah, everything's gonna change now. Everything's gonna change." So maybe it planted that seed of doubt in me, and I've just, like you said, gone down one route. But I definitely agree with, like I said, probably 90% of what we talked about tonight.
Yeah, I'm a lot more skeptical, but that yeah, it's good to listen to views that aren't your own, and because you do bring up a good number of like legitimate like concerns and fears about everything, which it's
with what's going on at the moment, guys. You've got. I agree that be a bit careful and be a little bit more wary than usual. But you've got to go and take a look at the official numbers, even with this particular It's not a pandemic. We need to stop calling it a pandemic, because again, that's been programmed into our psyche. All the things that you see being put out to us, it's like neuro-linguistic programming. When you see them three guys come out of an evening and do their talk, I remember going, it's unprecedented times, unprecedented measures. Certain things are done in certain ways. Certain numbers of words are used in certain ways that go in. And it's not new. Again, this has been done for so long. You can use neuro-linguistic programming on yourself to make yourself do better things, or you can use it on others if you're good at it. And that's what goes on. It's been going on for so long. But this has been a wake-up moment for a lot of people that made more people ask questions. And, you know, if you go and look at the figures, so if we know now that through doctors and scientists even, that the mortality rate of this, and this is not to say, let's not have, you know, people aren't dying. Yes, people have died. It's not to be, what's the right word, being disrespectful. I'm not like that about anything. I wouldn't want anyone to die, anyone to be hurt. But we do know it's around about the same rate as a normal flu. Okay, so we know that 100% now, and we can see all the game that's been played around it. So you could say, well, why would the government want to smash the economy? You could suggest that the government don't really run it. I kind of hinted at that with Agenda 21 and Agenda 30, because that usurps government, which is why every country in the world, pretty much, is doing it. Okay, so what if our governments affront people and don't really do all the decision making? Would you really trust Boris Johnson, from what you've seen of him, to be the big decision maker? I don't know. Would you have trusted George Bush? I mean, you might be too young to remember him, but I wouldn't have trusted George Bush in making me a cup of tea, let alone anything else. So, and he was a president of America, you know. So, if somebody else is pulling the strings, they're not going to suffer, these government people, from the economy being brought down. But when you bring the economy down, you make dependency. So when you make dependency, that means people who used to have businesses and jobs have no longer got them. But you can then give them a handout. And that handout will be a nice survival handout. And that survival handout will also be recorded on your microchip, or before the microchip, whatever it is you're carrying around with you. And it will go to you electronically. And when they've eradicated cash, because everybody's too frightened to hold cash because they might cash a coal off it, and it's gone. I've been trying to get rid of cash for years. Remember, I'm a bit older, so I've been seeing these things happen. All you've got is electronic credit, because there's no real money in existence. Nothing's backed by anything, because there's no money in existence. There's more debt than there is cash. You've got no cash. If you're a multimillionaire, you wouldn't have any money, because it'll just be credit on your electronic. Let's call it a microchip for now, because it's simple, on your microchip. So then you get your allowance of money. What if then you've done something that they don't like you doing, like one of the statutes are broken? You can straight off your allowance. This is a totalitarian state we're coming into. So I understand that we don't want to get anybody too frightened. I understand that we don't want anyone to rush out there and go and risk their lives. But at the same time, if we don't kind of get out there and get something done soon, our economy doesn't last a week. let alone 10 weeks. And more borrowing has been taken from probably, I would imagine, the international bankers that's got to be paid back. And it's to the tune of billions. So this has been set up for me, this has. I consider it's been beautifully set up. And it's an horrible point of view. But if you remember going back to where we started, there's good and bad in everything. And we're the real power because we're used as the host. We're the real power. Our minds are our real power. So when we take our minds back, which you've all just hinted at, think for ourselves. Don't listen to what I've just said and go, "Oh, he's telling the truth." Take whatever you think of it, then go and look it up, and then look at what somebody else is saying, and come to that view, and be a bit spiritual on it. Go and meditate, or whatever religion you might be in. Go in and quiet, and and enjoy that side of things as well. And we can change things. We're with the power to change it all. It's not all scary. There's loads of love out there.
Right.
Absolutely. I think we should. I think that's a great place to finish. On a somewhat positive note there.
I've enjoyed it. I've probably talked too much.
No, thanks for coming.
It's been very good.
That's why you're on.
One thing I'd say, guys, I've spent a lot of years looking at stuff. It's been over 19 years, and I've gone through so many different things: the dark and the occult, the light and the occult. All so many things. Sometimes you try and formulate it and get as much out as you can. And I've not been getting it out there like this for very long. And sometimes it probably gets a bit mixed up because you're feeling like I want to say this, I want to say that. Oh, what am I going to say first? So if I've gone a bit fast sometimes, I apologise.
No, it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant to have you. It's really good to hear a different opinion, and brilliant.
Okay, then guys, go and do some research as well. Keep doing it and keep looking into it all, and don't get too afraid.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, again, thanks for coming on the show. Been great to have you, and hope everyone listening has enjoyed some of the things that we've brought up. And yeah, go away and research them yourselves and formulate your own opinions on everything. And yeah, stay safe, and thanks for listening. Cheers.
Good night, all. Thank you.